With the 6th pick in the 2024 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets should select Dalton Knecht. Or maybe they should trade back and select him. I don't know. The value on these guys is weird. But the point is, I like this dude. All right? I like the prospect, and I think he fits very well, or would fit very well with the Charlotte Hornets. My name is Sam Dracula. I'm a Hornets fan. I've been making videos on all the prospects that I think are kind of in play for the Hornets at 6 that I want them to draft, and kind of grading them and ranking them against each other. There's some guys that are in the Hornets range that I want no part of. I'm going to do a video on those guys later. But this video is about Dalton Knecht, who, depending on what mock draft you look at, looks like he could be there at 6 and possibly there at 10, at latest 10, depending on how things shake out ahead of them, like ahead of that selection. I want to just do a vibe check update on how the mocks are kind of shaking out. Ricochet is making a big push, right, to number 1 overall, right? I could say Klingon making a run as we get closer to it as well, but Ricochet and Sar are making a run when you look at consensus mock drafts, yeah? I've already done a video on Castle, Klingon, and Reed Shepard. This is on Knecht. I'm probably not going to do one on Ricochet because I don't think he's going to be there. I already wasn't going to do one on Sar for the same reason. He's not in play for the Hornets. You know, I did Reed Shepard for his hopeful thinking, right? But, you know, we don't know how this thing's going to play out. And I do not think the Hornets should trade up for anybody, just for the record. I think they should stay exactly where they are, in my opinion. But as we go through this process, as we go through these next couple of weeks leading up to the draft, this is going to change a little bit, right? We're going to see these names change and reports and kind of come out, workouts are going to happen, and we're going to get a closer idea of how things are going to fill out on draft night. Speaking of the draft, I'll be live streaming the draft both days on this channel, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe for that. But Knecht is the subject of this video. I'm going to get my spiel out the way about this past season's Charlotte Hornets squad that was terrible on both ends, 28th in offense, 29th in defense, worst point differential in the NBA, worst rebounding team in the NBA, 26th in field goal percentage, 21st in three-point percentage, 26th in assists per game, 25th in steals, and 25th in blocks. This team needs help everywhere on both ends, yeah? And so they're not in a position to be picky. So I think they should draft best player available. Going into next season, you know, the hope is LaMelo's healthy, right? And then Brandon Miller continues to build on an excellent rookie year, right? Those are the anchors of this next season and the next 10 years, right? When you project this thing out, who fits well with those guys? And I think a lot of these prospects do fit well with those guys. Mark Williams, if he's healthy, hopefully he's healthy and all the back problems are behind him, no pun intended, then he's another piece that you could have in the mix for the next 10 years. And Dalton Knecht slots in perfectly into that mix as a spot-up shooter, just a shooter in general and scorer, right? Like this team really struggled. Obviously, like I mentioned the numbers a minute ago. The shooting was terrible last year. So we know, we don't know Miles Bridges' future, but we know Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball will be on the team next year. They're under contract, right? And we know what they can do, right? We know what LaMelo can do. We just need him to stay healthy. Brandon Miller, after year 1, an incredible rookie year. I only expect it to continue to get better, up and to the right, at least from my end. You know what I mean? Continual growth from Brandon Miller. No worries there. The question is, what about the other guys, the young guys, especially like Nick Smith Jr.? Right? What does he look like in year 2? Right? Brandon McGowan's going into year 3, I believe. Is Seth Curry washed up? I don't know. Right? Trey Mann in a contract year last year's rookie deal. There's a lot of questions about the score. Davis Bertans statistically was the best 3-point shooter on the team last season. And that's a problem. Like I mentioned before in the Reed Shepard video, you don't want that. You know, you don't want that. A guy who coming off the bench is chugging up 6 threes a game and being your leading contributor in that department. Not a good look, right? Knecht will help with that. And they play a very similar position too. So, or fit a very similar role in the rotation. Because I look at Knecht as a bench guy, especially early on. Generally speaking, if my personal preference is to not draft guys that are in their mid-20s. Respectfully. He's not that old. He's 23 years old, Knecht is. But the weird thing is he's older than LaMelo, Mark Williams, Pokashevsky, JT Thor, Bryce McGowens, Brandon Miller, Amari Bailey, and Nick Smith Jr. That is weird. But it's a good thing, though, because a lot of guys that I mentioned are projects still. We don't know what they are yet. The idea that Knecht, as an older man, can come in, hopefully, and be ready to go sooner than these other projects get better and improve to a point where they can be relied upon. Knecht being older is just a matter of how he develops and like what his upside looks like. You know, I'm guilty of this, of looking at guys who are who's 23, 24 years old coming into the draft, say how much better you're going to be when you miss out on those like early years in the NBA. The other side of it is they may be more NBA ready than a 20-year-old or 19-year-old. Right? You got to find that balance. And I think, you know, looking at the names I just mentioned, Nick Smith Jr., Amari Bailey, both those guys are projects. Nick Smith is more ahead, more advanced than Amari at this point, right? McGowan's going into year 2 or year 3 with McGowan's, right? He's the same age as Brandon Miller, basically. JT Thor going into year 3, basically the same age, a 2002 birthday, right? Pokashevsky's been around forever somehow. I don't know how he's only 22 still. It's weird. But yeah, Mark Williams, LaMelo Ball, right? These guys have more experience, but they're also still very young. So having a guy who is older but doesn't have the experience is a different dynamic than what we've been doing. And let's be very clear, what the Hornets been doing hasn't been working. I love his story, man. Going from JUCO to Northern Colorado to Tennessee, right? The progression, the entry into tougher competition and the continuing of performing is amazing, man. I love it. And it's a incredible story if it all plays out where he goes from JUCO to a top 10 NBA draft pick. That's a beautiful thing. And I'm rooting for him whether he's in Charlotte or not. I think it'll be awesome. I think it'll be an awesome story. And the fact that he's gone to harder competition and has kept up his numbers and improved in most areas, like that's a beautiful thing. And you can only hope that that continues in the next level. So I like Knecht. I think he would fit in very well in Charlotte if he's there. I think there's more value in him at 10 than 6. But as a fit, as a piece to the puzzle that the Hornets are trying to put together, I think it works very well. I would rather have Castle. I would rather have Shepard. I would rather have Klingon. But Knecht works for me. I'll be happy with that. The Knecht comps I've seen Strus. I've seen Duncan Robinson. I've seen Bogdanovich. I've seen Kevin Huerter. I've seen KCP, to throw some diversity in there, right? All that's great. All that stuff's great. I would take any of those actual players on this team right now. To have a rookie version of those guys would be amazing as well, right? For cap reasons. But also, I just remember like just having flashbacks to playing against those guys, or those types of guys, and thinking, why don't we have one of those guys? Kupchak could never put one of those dudes, those types of dudes, on this team. We never saw it. The closest thing we have as a pure catch and shoot threat, it took the trade deadline. It took Kupchak's last trade deadline to bring in Bertans as a real catch and shoot threat. Like, what the hell? Why? 4 years waiting for something, and we finally get it. And he's Bertans. Respectfully, he's Bertans, you know? And he's probably gone, bro. That $16 million contract's probably going to be flipped for something else. Knecht is a real option to have a real answer there for the long term. But what do you think about Knecht? Let me know in the comments below. I'm a fan. I would have rather a few other players ahead of him, but if the Hornets pick him 6th overall or at all, I won't complain about it. You won't catch me complaining about it. But until next time, I've been Sam. You've been great. Peace.